Hi there, very good day to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. In your module, tonight's topic is about the interrelationship between the recent developments in the education system of the UK and the legislations in the UK. So there is a very close relationship within the legislations of the country connect regarding or otherwise connect the legislations later to education system, and there's an impact on the education system as well. So legislation law connected to education system and the impact of that on the relationship between these two. That is what the topic tonight. Since we are not from the legal background, let me have some quick brief on what the legislation is about. We'll have a look at it now quickly, then we'll go to the topic. Now, when I mean legislation, there are different words: legislation, law, statute, act, regulations. These are all almost the same, meaning the effect of this is almost the same. If a country has a law, we call this legislation, we call this statute, we call it act. There are differences in between, minor differences, but there is law. So you have to be in compliance with it. Nobody is above the legislation, above the law of the country. You are subject to law. You have to be in compliance with it. Otherwise, you may be taken against the charges under that law in the courts. They may charge you certain things. It depends on what law, it depends on what you do, what you did. Okay, so everybody is subject to law. Now, when I mean this, an example, let's say your highway court might say that when you want to ride a motorbike, you should wear a crash helmet. That is law. Nobody can ride motorbike without a crash helmet. You are subject to law. If you do that, you are subject to law. You will be taken to the courts before judge to charge you, to punish you. That is the law. Right now, when you mean law, Parliament makes the law mainly. There are other bodies as well to make law. Parliament law is the supreme law of any country. They can make any law, they can repeal, they can cancel any law, they can change, they can alter any law as well. That's up to the Parliament. Parliament is the law-making authority of any country. Now, not only the Parliament in countries, courts, judges, they also make some laws when they decide cases. Okay, you can have a look at it if you're really interested in law in a different topic, not here. But main supreme law-making authority is the Parliament. Judges, they make laws. Local government, they also make laws. There are different bodies, they make laws. Right, so that is the law. Now, when the law is made, there will be a regulatory body, or we call them enforcement authority. They are the people, they enforce that law. Example, Parliament makes the law to regulate the road users. If you are a car, you have to have the driving license, you have to have the MOT, you have to have the annual license, you have to have the insurance. These are all legal requirements. Law says you have to have this, otherwise you can't use the road to drive a car. That's the law. Now, who is the enforcement authority? If you breach this law, if you transgress this law, if you don't obey this law, if you are not in compliance with this law, who takes you to take some legal charges against you? Who is involved in? They are the people we call enforcement authority. In the case of a vehicle road users, police is the enforcement authority. They are the people, they take you to the courts to charge you for your offense, for your breach. If it is about the wild law, right, animals using forest for purposes and so on, there are laws. That law, the government, the parliament makes it, and enforcement authority may be the wildlife department. It depends. Okay, countries have different names for that. They are the people, they are the authority. they enforce this law. If it is about pricing, price control, minimum price, maximum price, those kind of things, the consumer rights and things like that. So there are laws on it, and there is a regulatory body or enforcement authority. If a business breach any of these laws, they are the people, they enforce the legal charges against them. So that is the enforcement authority. Right now, we'll come back to our original topic here. The question is about the laws, the legislations or statute in the UK, and the relationship between this legislation to the education system of the UK. That is what the topic. And there are so many, and I'm going to discuss few today. Let's have a look at it. Right. Uh, the act is this Children and Family Act 2014. This is a law. Okay, you can Google this and you can see this law. You can download this act. It's a big act. I don't think you'll be able to read all of it, but you can get some idea about it if you go to Google or if you go to ChatGPT. They can give you the brief of this law. Okay, this law was enacted in 2014. That's the year this law came into force. Okay, this law has done lots of changes in the curriculum, national curriculum of students of schools in different ways. Okay, this law makes the core subjects as maths, English, and science. They are the core subjects. According to this law, you have to have these core subjects. However, this law focuses on training, vocational training, and technical education. Okay, this law has relaxed the schools to teach vocational trainings and technical education. Meantime, the character education. What is character education? Behavioral education. How to behave before people. If you want to socialize with people, if you go around the society, what you do, and so on, the leadership subjects and stuff like that. So that also has to be taught. And the mental health, okay, life skill development, those are the areas this law has made compulsory for schools when they want to reform their education. Okay, so Children and Family Act 2014 has made impact in the British education system, where when you make these curriculum reforms, it has made the curriculum reforms, it has made maths, English, and science the core subjects. So if you study for your school, primary and maybe secondary, these subjects are core main subjects. Okay, with that, that focuses on vocational training and technical education, and it focuses the emphasis on character education, mental health, and development of life skills. So there is the law. Okay, and the same law is here. That is the same law. Same law has given some inclusion on the special education needs and disability. Now, when you take a class, you take a school, you would see students with special needs and disability. They may need some special facilities, special settings to study, to do assessments. And this law make it mandatory for schools and colleges, institutions to provide these special needs for for people if they need it or if they're disabled. You have to include them in the class. You cannot isolate them. Okay, so that is the another extension of the same law, Children and Families Act 2014. And again, you can have a think on this one. Education, health, and care plans. This is also part of this law. You can have a look at this on Google. This law makes it compulsory for people to focus on education and the health as well with the care plan. Health means if you focus only to education, your health may get damaged. So you have to have a health and care plan as well. And have a Google, you'll get very clear picture with an extended information. The next law is this online learning and digital education. After the COVID-19, we had schools had to go through these online learning platforms to do this distance learning while you are locked down at your home. Okay, so when you want to get people, students to learn from, there are laws. The one of the law is this related to data protection. Data protection. When I mean data protection, uh, General Data Protection Regulations, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations. Now, when you go online, you may be collecting data, personal data, and sensitive data from students. When I mean personal data, the address, the date of birth, the name, the phone number, those kind of things are personal details. You may be collecting sensitive data, which is about the disability, sexual orientation, those kind of things are sensitive data. You may be collecting those as well. Now, how do you handle this? This is part of your education system. You cannot collect data the way you want. You have to look into it. When I mean General Data Protection Regulation, that is talking about the lawfulness of collecting data. You cannot ask anything that you want, anything that you think. You can only look for what you really need. Okay, and there should be a transparency in processing those data. You collect their date of birth, you collect their gender, those things, and you may process that. You have to have some transparency. Okay, and your purpose should be limited. Why do you collect this data for? You are collecting data because to teach the students. That's it. You cannot collect anything more than that. You cannot have any purpose more than that. You cannot pass this data on to a third party because your purpose is just to teach. Okay, and you cannot pass this on to a marketing team or marketing company to market anything. If you want to do it, you have to get permission from the students, those kind of things. Okay, and then data minimization. You minimize the data as much as you can to collect data from. Okay, that is again another requirement of this law. Next thing is about the accuracy. You have to collect accurate data and you have to check the accuracy of it then and there. If the accuracy, if it is not accurate, you have to update those. And storage limitation, you cannot store the data of your students for many years as you want. No, you collect and you save it, you store it until you need it. Otherwise, you have to destroy it. Let's say you collect the data from a student and you may keep that for 1 or 2 years if it is needed. Beyond that, you never keep it. You have to destroy it. Okay, that is the limitation of it. You can only keep it uh, for the period of time that you really want. Beyond that, no. Okay, and integrity and confidentiality, you cannot use this data for any other purposes other than it was collected for, and you cannot use this data to publish it or to pass it on. You have to keep it very confidentially. You can't share it with any others. And this Data Protection Act 2018 is another act that regulates education institutions, and that is talking about the health and the criminal justice as well, because it is a common data protection act. Hospitals, they collect data from their patients. Court system, police system, they collect data from the offenders. Okay, those data also should be protected. So this Data Protection Act cover all three, but in our case, we look into only the education protection of data of your students that you collected from. Okay, so this is again another impact or another connection of this. Now, children's online privacy protection under UK General Data Protection Regulation and the Data Protection Act that additionally protect children's data. Example, let's say if the child is under 13, okay, they are not capable of giving the permission to you to collect data of them, to use their data, because they are underaged and they don't have the maturity to decide whether that is right or wrong. So that's why if they are under 13, you have to get the consent from the parents. You have to get the consent from the parents. Okay, so this is again another uh, protection that we provide, UK laws provide for children. Now, this is having a connection to the schools. Schools, when they collect data to teach people online, they definitely have to collect data. They definitely have to get the permission, get the consent from the parents if they are under 18. Okay, right. So that is another one. The next thing is about the Information Commissioner's Office. As I told you earlier, the authority, okay, enforcing authority is Information's Commission's Office. Okay, that we collect data from you, and that data is recorded with Information's Commissioner's Office, ICO. Okay, ICO, Information Commissioner's Office. Now, this is a regulatory body for all these data-related protections in the UK. If you misuse it, if you don't comply with this law, the action will be taken by this authority, Information Commissioner's Office. The Information Commissioner will take you to the courts to charge you things. Okay, they'll penalize you, and this is the regulatory body or enforcement authority. Okay, now the next thing is about the online learning and digital education, the online safety bill. Now, when I say bill, okay, what is bill? Bill. I told you before, legislation, statute, act, law, these are all laws that is already passed by the government. So that is law, or those are laws that is in force, that is already passed by the parliament. But when I mean bill, this is a draft. This is not passed by the parliament. This doesn't have any impact. You don't need to be in compliance with it. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have any legal authority. It doesn't have any legal weight to take any actions against you. Okay. But it is a bill. It will go through the parliamentary process, and they may make it a law later. Okay, so there is no law at the moment in the UK about this online safety, but they have drafted a bill that will go through the parliament in the UK, maybe, and they will make a law later. Okay, so this one is talking about the online safety of students. Okay, online harm. All right, so that is again another impact of this. Next thing is about the next law, which is about the equality and diversity in education. Equality and diversity in education. There's another law, Equality Act 2010. In this act, this was enacted in 2010. In this act, students, when they join a school, you should not have any discrimination because of these protected characteristics. Okay, that's about the race, the gender, okay, mental health, those kind of things. You cannot discriminate people because the race, the gender, okay. And this law says universities, you have to accommodate anyone if they have the qualification to enter the course. The gender is not a qualification, the ethnicity is not a qualification, the race is not a qualification. You never consider those to accommodate students in your university. That's the law. Okay, so that is about the equality and diversity law. Okay, so wait there, my screen has failed to move. Let me upload again. My screen is frozen. Wait there, please. Right, sorry about that to keep you waiting. So, the protected characteristics such as race, sex, age, disability, these are not qualifications. You should not consider these one of these to discriminate uh, access to education. So, universities has to have their equality policy. We have a policy you can read from our website, and every university should have one. Otherwise, you can't do it. Okay, the next thing is about the teacher training and professional standards. This is the Education Act 2001. This this law makes it important for professional standards of teachers. Okay, so you have to have very good, clear idea about this. This requires teachers minimum qualification and the professional development CPD, what they need to do, how often, how much, all those kind of things are set out in this law. You can have a look at it. Okay, and again, this has developed a concept called Teaching Excellence Framework, TEF. What is this? Let me show you. Teaching Excellence Framework that evaluates institutions based on the combination of measures. Three measures they take into. Number one, the teaching quality, number one. Number two, student outcome. Number three, overall learning environment. These are the three factors they consider when they do the gradings, evaluations of institutions. Okay, this is coming under this law. And key areas, as I told you, teaching quality, learning environment, student outcome, and learning gain. How much the learner learns from this institution. Based on this, they give you points. They do the ratings as well. They do gold, gold, silver, bronze, three different categories of it. Institutions, if they want, they can participate. If they don't want, they don't need to. This law doesn't make it mandatory for institutions. But if you participate, if you get gold rating, you will get more students to study because that will give a recommendation about your university. Okay, yeah, this is the teaching efficiency framework. Okay, the purpose is this: inform students about the teaching quality of different institutions and improve the teachings because institutions they want to improve their teaching. They want to improve their teaching because to get some more students, so they'll automatically work on it and to recognize the excellence. If you do excellent, we have to recognize it. That's why we do this framework TEF. Okay, yeah, that's it. Let me summarize this in a simple way to help you to answer your question. What is your question? Your question is about this the interrelationship between recent developments in the education system. Education system in the UK is getting developments, getting changes, getting improvements, getting a different look. The reason is because legislations are compelling. Legislations are coming out. They are compelling universities to do changes, to do developments. Okay, and to do this, the question is, you have to bring in some legislations, okay, a few legislations, and say some examples of those legislations and what is the relationship of this legislation to the education system. What is the impact of it? What does this legislation do to the education system? Okay, so you can talk about this one, children and family Act 9 2014. If you can have a look at it, okay. Uh, you can ask Google the impact of Children and Families Act 2014 in UK education system. You'll get answers. Okay, read those answers and build your assignments. Right, so that is how you can discuss this law. There are so many laws. I have only brought in three or four. There are so many laws. Okay, this is one of them. There are laws that is related to the educational fundings, how much fund to be given. If you want to study on borrowing basis, what is the fund and so on, that is there. Okay, the assessment related laws are there. How the assessment should be, there are laws. The language of assessment related laws are there. What language should be assessed the student at, there are laws. You can take them. Okay, there are flexibilities now that you can use different languages as well for assessment, not only English. Okay, so that is possible, right? So that is again another law. And Data Protection Act, that that is another law that protect the data of the students. That is that is compelling universities as to what to do, how can they collect data, and what are the data they can collect, what is the limitation of it, all those things are there. So you can pick about three different laws minimum, and discuss those laws impact on the education system. That's the answer. Very easy. I have brought in three or four. There are so many. You can take these three, or you can take different laws as well and say the impact of that one, impact of that particular law. Individually discuss it in the education system of the UK. That's the question. Okay. Right. So that's the answer. That's the question. Right. Now, that is the 3.1. Now I'm going to go to the 3.2. That is the last question. Let me upload that again because my screen frozen again. I don't know why. Right. Let's go to the last question. Last question I have already discussed. In fact, I only have to explain the way you answer that question. Right. There's the last question, 3.2. Evaluate current educational practice changed as a result of legislation. Now, when the legislation comes into effect, when the legislation is enforceable, you have to follow it. Okay, you have to follow it. Otherwise, legal action will be taken. Right? If government brings some legislation, some law, you have to follow. If you don't follow, legal actions against you. Right? So the question is, legal legislations are coming out from the parliament, so that's fine, but is it making any impact, any result on the educational practice? Okay, is it making, laws are coming, but do you see the impact of law? Do you see the impact as you really wanted? You bring in laws, for example, let's say you make a big fine if you don't obey the signal lights when you drive. You have to stop your car when the red light is on. If you don't stop, the fine would be, let's say, 2,000 sterling pounds. The reason why the government want to impose a big fine like this to minimize or to stop, to make it zero, these kind of incidents, to minimize these incidents, okay, to take it out from the society. 2,000 sterling pounds is a big amount of money, okay. But when you make this law, you expect zero offense in terms of your red color light signal disobedience, but you still get people, they don't mind, they just go and they make the fine, they make the payments. Okay, so this is what the question. We make the law, we make very strict law, but does that law do what it's supposed to do? Okay, does that law do what it's supposed to do? Law is made to control or to stop every driver to obey the color light signal. So you increase the fine so that people would be respecting it, because huge fine. Now, does that happen? The answer is no. You may say capital punishment, meaning the death sentence for uh, smugglers of drugs. Okay, so smuggling drug carries death sentence. That's a law in Middle East. Okay, that's a law in many countries in the world. But does that law stop this drug smuggling? Not at all. You have drugs everywhere in the world. So though you have the law, is it making Is it doing what it's supposed to do? Are you getting the result you really intended to? The answer is no in many areas. But in education, how is it happening? That's the question. So find some legislations, and what does the legislation say? And is this legislation good enough? I'm sorry, good enough to make some changes in education practices? Is this law making changes in education? Is it making it? Is it good enough? That's the question. So you may say yes, you may say no. Both answers are correct, but you have to write the justification. You say this university or universities, they don't obey this, or they can't do this, things like that, whatever. Okay, either answer is fine, but you have to clearly explain with the examples and justify. This law is this, but we don't get any kind of this. Okay, this law is this, but we are getting this, so it's good or bad, whatever. Okay, that is how you write the answer for this, right? So laws are made because to do changes, but does that law make the change what it's supposed to make? That's the question here. We already learned about the legislation, we already learned about the changes. So pick one or two laws, in fact, pick three laws and write about the law and find out whether this law is working. Okay, that's it. That's all. That is your module, your whole module of these contemporary issues in theory, policy, and practice. Okay, that is it from me. I see you in the next module. Have a great day.